Our chronological Bible reading for August 11th is Jeremiah chapters 14 through 17. Jeremiah receives a word from God concerning the drought. So often when things just aren't going the way we'd like them to go, we need a word from God. That's in fact the reason that God takes us into those places. He wants to get us out of our comfort zone so we'll seek Him, so we'll listen for His word. Sometimes God won't speak until we move, until we change something that He's been convicting us about, and sometimes the drought, whether it's spiritual or physical, is a result of God's discipline. In verse 3, the nobles send their little ones to the cisterns in search of water, but they find no water. Sometimes the things we are trying to do, God just stands in the way of. We're not going to be successful until we stop and acknowledge Him, seek Him, and put into practice the things He's telling us to do. In verse 14, God says, "These prophets are prophesying in my name, but they're lying. I didn't send them. I didn't give them a word to teach, and the things they are saying they made up on their own." This is why it's fundamentally important for the people of God to learn discernment, study the Word of God for themselves. Let us all take responsibility for our own spiritual walk. As much as you respect your favorite Bible teacher or pastor or church ministry leader, be very slow to follow a person. Always remember that words from people are just that. God can speak through anyone, and He does speak through many of us. But as Paul writes in 1 Thessalonians 5, we must test every word and hold on only to that which is good. This doesn't mean only hold on to the things that make us feel good. It's to hold on to the things that are really from God, that measure up against the Word of God. And that's why it's fundamental that we study the Bible, that we know the Word of God clearly, so that when the Word of God comes from another person, we can determine for ourselves whether or not it's from God and for us. The people who blindly follow religious leaders are in danger of following wolves dressed in sheep's clothing. False teachers will definitely face the fiercest of God's judgment, but those who are led astray will suffer consequences as well. Today in 2025, the Word of God is more prevalent and more accessible than it's ever been at any point throughout all of history. Gone are the days when the people of God were dependent upon a priest to read and interpret a text that was in a different language. Gone are the days when we had to blindly trust any Bible translation. We now have access to apps like Bible Hub and Blue Letter Bible that give us instant and direct access to not just every single English translation, but also the Hebrew and the Greek. We're able to break down the etymology of different words, knowing their history, where they came from, and what they meant. There is no excuse for any of us to be illiterate when it comes to the Bible anymore. And God is saying on this day, He wants to raise up a people who are dependent upon Him, not dependent upon church or ministry leaders. God is calling us towards spiritual maturity, where we feed, dress, cleanse, and provide for ourselves, dependent only on His Word and on His Spirit. And as we step into this role of being responsible for ourselves, we will have the ability and the maturity to walk in obedience of the more than 50 New Testament one another commands. Commands like love one another, serve one another, teach and admonish one another, build one another up, encourage one another. It's time for the people of God to no longer be spoon-fed from a minister once a week and start walking in the freedom to live out our own calling, be of value, because in God's eyes we're all equal, and your gift is needed just as much as mine or anyone else's. Jeremiah goes on to beg God, asking Him to send rain, to intervene, to have mercy on Judah. And God's response in chapter 15, verse 1 says, "Even if Moses or Samuel were to come and stand before me, interceding for these people, I wouldn't listen." There comes a time when the people of God become so hard-hearted and have rejected so much truth from God that He just says no more. The time for judgment has come. In verse 10, Jeremiah complains about how the people dislike Him, how they disrespect Him. In the next verse, God says, "Haven't I set you free for good?" It seems as though God is saying, I have delivered you from those relationships that would have entrapped you otherwise. Instead of complaining about your loneliness, be grateful for the fact that you're not entangled in relationships that are going to drag you down. As difficult as it is, we need to be a people who rejoice in every circumstance, knowing that as long as we are walking in accordance with God's will, everything that happens to us is for our good. It's for our spiritual benefit. It's so that we can become closer to God and less attached to this world. God goes on to say in verse 19, if you, Jeremiah, and that's singular, that's written to just Jeremiah, if you return to me, I will take you back and you will stand in my presence. And then he goes on to say something very important. It is they who need to return to you, Jeremiah. You don't go to them. So often we as the people of God have this heart for reconciliation, and there's certainly a time for that, but sometimes God is saying to us, you need to be resolute, you need to stand on the truth, and those who have rejected you because of the truth, you're better off without them in your life. As hard as that is for us to hear, let's submit to the Word of God and prayerfully consider whether this is something God is speaking to us today about a specific relationship, or if the reverse is true. But let's make sure we're hearing from God. Let's submit to his word. Let's invite input from a multitude of counselors. Jeremiah 17 verse 9 says, the heart is more deceitful than anything else. It's incurable. Who can understand it? God tests our hearts, and we must be careful. Don't believe the lie of the world that says, follow your heart. Our heart is very easily influenced by the flesh, by the lust of this world. And so we must be careful. We must be immersed in the Word of God. We must be asking God continually to reveal any unclean way in us and asking God to speak to us directly. This is why Spirit-filled Christian community is so fundamentally important. And we should surround ourselves with people who submit to the Word of God rather than those who are going to tell us what it is they think we want to hear. God bless you, my friends. May the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob reveal his truth to you as you submit yourself to him, as you ponder these things today for his glory, for the advancement of his kingdom in your life, and for your good. See you tomorrow.